Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
He had got a message from his friend that Molly was tied up to a tree, and this was all around the 10th. We had dug up this one spot, and we all three thought, "Oh my God!" It looked just like a body, like a skeleton.
These ain't the only two. I promise you. There's more, and he is the devil, and he sure deserves to go right on to hell. I promise you.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman.
We want to thank everyone for the support this past week and to let you know that we've created a discussion board on Facebook that we hope you'll join, and that we're starting a campaign for Molly on TikTok called Paula's Plea. So please look for it and help us share it to get the word out, because we definitely need your help. Without your help, this is impossible.
This week, we're lucky enough to have another one of Molly's cousins, Misty Howell. Misty has been investigating this case with Paula since day one. They're an incredible team.
Let's call Misty.
Hello.
Hey, Misty.
Hey,
How
Misty.
are you?
Hi.
How are
Hi.
you?
I'm fine.
First of all, we wanted to say we were so sorry to hear about Alex.
Yes.
Oh, I know. That was heartbreaking.
I know.
And, we're still all a little bit in shock over it because it just all happened so fast.
Yeah.
It's awful. I'm so sorry.
Exactly.
Just so you know, we're recording this. Are you okay with us recording this for the podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. But Misty, really quickly before we forget, can you just tell us how you're related to Molly? What was Molly like? Just give me a little bit about her.
Okay, so Molly's mom and me are first cousins. Our daddies are brothers. So Alex is my uncle. Molly's grandpa is my uncle. And Molly babysitted for me anytime I needed to. I moved home, got a divorce. I lived in Marlow, moved home, and Molly babysitted for me, and that's how we got really close. Molly knew anytime she needed help or needed me or anything, she should just call me, and I would be the cool cousin that would call her, come and get her, or whatever she needed. That's why I knew when she went for a few days, and I just thought maybe she went to the lake and stayed longer, and she, was maybe upset at her mom, I just really didn't know what the situation was, but she's never not came home because she's one of those persons that she's going to let us know something. When it went 3 or 4 days, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And Molly was the type, she was going to take up for herself. But we were all raised that way. As Millers, we're tough, hearted, and strong people, just to where we're not going to start something, but we're not going to take no crap off. And that's the way Molly was too. She took up for herself, and that's just the way she was. But she was a sweet person.
So I think the best thing to do is let's start at the beginning. When you first found out that Molly went missing, how did you find out?
Okay. I believe it was Molly's mom and several of Molly's friends that called and asked me if I seen Molly or has she stopped by, and I hadn't seen her, and I told her I had told them if I did I would let them know, but it just wasn't unusual. I figured she'd show back up, and that was like around on the 10th. No, it was on the 9th. So it was on that Tuesday. Yeah. So it was like around on the Tuesday whenever we started getting really concerned. Because in the beginning, when I did talk to Melissa, I said, where was she going? Well, she was supposed to have gone with Jessica to the lake, and that was what they were going to do for the weekend. So it was like she didn't come back home, you see.
Yeah.
So that was, to my understanding, she was supposed to have gone to the lake with Jessica Williams that weekend and then winded up at Josh Davis's house instead of going to the lake.
Yeah, so that's surprising for all of you.
So when did you first feel like something went wrong?
The next day, I had messaged Michael and I said, "Has Molly come home yet?" And he said, no, they hadn't heard from her. And me and Michael, and we were trying to work during the week. This is during the week, and but all of us was trying to work and trying to be worried about Molly and just was hoping that she would just show up and come back home. He had got a message from his friend that Molly was tied up to a tree, and this was around the 10th. And Molly is the type of person that she's clean. If she's out in the woods, she'd be needing a bath because she'd take a shower 3 times a day. She's one of those that she likes to be clean. She's not one to sweat a lot, not even in sport. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if she was out there in the woods, she's not. She's going to find a shower somewhere. Something was wrong when she didn't show up, especially it was 90 to 100 degrees during that time. It was really hot. So I started really getting concerned. I'm not friends with Colt Haynes on Facebook, but I PM'd him on the 10th. And I screenshotted it, exactly what I said to him. And this was July 10th at 10:28 p.m. I said, "Hey, Colt, call me." And I gave him my number. And then the next day, July 11th, I said, ASAP, and I capitalized it all. And I said, "Call me, bring Molly by my house now." And I did put 3 exclamation points because after Michael told me that he had heard that she got tied up to a tree, we started getting concerned. It was like, what in the world? But how Michael got that was on the 10th, his friend mom is a beautician. Jeremy Hodges was talking, and his friend's mom that was cutting this lady's hair was overheard her say that Greg Vickers had told her that Molly Miller was tied up to a tree. So the lady that was cutting the hair called her son that was at roping buddies with Michael, and he messaged Michael and said, "Hey, I think Molly's in trouble." And so he told him. So then we started figuring out, okay, where do we start? Trying to find Molly. Well, through some friends, she was the first place me and Michael went and looked and this was on the 10th. It was on a Wednesday, the 10th. After we got off work, we went to Long Grove. It was at this guy's mom's house. His name was Clay Paul. So we went to Clay Paul's mom's house because we didn't know where Clay Paul lived at the time. Then we got a message that where Clay Paul was staying, and it was an apartment in Ardmore. No one answered the phone not answer the phone. No one answered at the house nor the apartment in Ardmore. So we was kind of like, we didn't know what to do. So the next day I got a message to Greg Vickers. And I knew Greg Vickers just from growing up. He's a big old guy, nice guy. We wanted to talk to him. And I could tell whenever he was real nervous because he didn't want to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And we did go to his house, and I asked him to get in the truck with us just to ride around. Just, we're not mean. We just wanted to ask him some questions on who told him and what, and tell us some information about Molly being tied up to a tree. And he said, I just kind of heard it, and he just never would really come out and tell us who told him, but he said it might not even be true, and then he started going backward. And that's what happens with all these. They start trying to tell you something, then you get real involved and want to start checking into it, and then they start running backwards. Because then they're like, oh no, when you really start trying to talk to them. We really didn't get much out of him that day, just on, he just said, I'll try to find more information out, that did he get back with us? No. I feel like there was some truth to that, being tied up to a tree.
Yeah.
But there's so much in this case right now that, it's overwhelming,
Yes. That rumor about her being tied up to the tree, there was a bunch of people who had said that. So to me, it seems like, why would anyone make that up?
Yes. Also, on the 11th, I messaged Colt Haynes' sister on the 11th, and I said, do you know a Colt Haynes? I didn't have a clue. Someone had told me that they were brother and sisters, but I wasn't sure. Anyway, she said, yeah, that's my brother. And she said, I don't see him a lot, but she let me know that he lived where he lived on 9th Street, but he was staying with Josh Davis. So that kind of rang a bell, okay. Anyway, she's the one how I got the information about the refrigerator. And she told me that, I believe, on the 12th. Let me go back on my notes right quick. 11th or 12th. She said Rob Branch took them a refrigerator to where they were staying. As far as I knew him and Con hated each other, so I don't know why they would be together. because I told her about that. That's what we heard.
Who hated each other?
Oh, Con and Colt. The sister said as far as she knew, she didn't know why they were even together because Con and Colt hated each other. But she knew that someone had messaged her that Rob Branch took them a refrigerator out there.
Out where?
Out to Con's grandparents. So this all happened within the first week. We're talking the first 3 or 4 days.
Is that common that people would bring other people refrigerators?
No, unless you got something I don't know. Now, maybe for them people out there, did y'all ever read Charlie Weatherford's statement?
Yes.
Police statement?
Yeah, but
okay.
Refresh our memory because Rob hasn't read it.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlie Weatherford is a girl, and her boyfriend was Dakota Paul. Dakota Paul was the guy that worked on the oil rig. Kobe Barrett had asked him to bring him some caustic acid. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
And this came from his girlfriend, and the girlfriend said he didn't come home Monday night, which would have been the 8th.
So the person working at the oil rig was asked to bring caustic acid to Colby.
Out to Kobe Barracks, which Kobe Barracks and Con, they live right there, right across the street from each other.
And what is caustic acid used for at an oil rig?
Caustic acid, I don't really know, to be honest with you, but I guess they got it in barrels out there. But after we looked into what caustic acid does, it's supposed to dissolve, but it's your skin. And I don't think it does melt bones, but it might. But I don't think it does. I mean, I don't know. I just knew on her statement when she said that, and then I tried to talk to Dakota Paul after that, and he wouldn't talk to me.
So when Charlie Weatherford, do you remember if she filed a police report?
Yeah. Okay. So that's the police report that Paula was telling you, that Officer Wilson, PD, he said that she wouldn't talk to him. So we got the police report, and went to take it over there and let her do it, and met her during the night.
Oh, so this is when you guys took the police report. They gave you
Parsley.
So
yes.
he just ripped off a sheet of the incident report for you, and you took it over to Charlie, correct?
Yeah, we met her at the Wilson Casino and just sat there in the booth and let her fill it out.
And then you gave it back to Parsley.
Yeah, gave it back to him.
What was his reaction when you gave it to him?
He said he'd take care of it and give it to Felix, which Felix was, I guess, the sheriff right there, I guess, at the time. Have you heard of his name?
Felix Hernandez, yeah.
Yes. And then Monique would try to get back and forth with me at times and just say, well, I'm still waiting on Felix to let us know some things. So he just never would get back and inform, because he knew in the beginning they just wanted to put it as a runaway. In the very beginning, they put her down as a runaway, and then but we all didn't know, in the beginning what happened. My Aunt Paula Jo, which is the grandma, Alex's wife, my Aunt Paula Jo was her rock. Once she passed away, Molly she fell apart. And
how soon after she passed away that Molly fell apart?
I think, within that year. And I can't remember. It's been so long ago. I remember it was right before my dad passed away. My dad passed away in 2011, and I want to say it was the year before. Molly just didn't have that stability. The grandma she came home and she listened to her grandma, and she didn't have that grandma to listen to, and so it was like she started rebelling. Started kind of getting a little bit out of control and having trouble. Melissa was having trouble with her. She wanted to move back home to her mom's because she was living with Alex and Paula Jo. And when she passed, she just kind of fell apart.
Okay, can I back up just a little bit? I want to go back to when you guys took the report for Charlie at the casino. How soon after Molly was missing that report was filled out?
Oh gosh, I want to say it was within the couple of months. I almost think it was September, but I could be wrong.
And she reached out to you guys?
Charlie Weatherford?
Yeah.
Yeah, she talked to us. And when she filled out the report, we thanked her and was hoping that they would do something right then about that. We couldn't get nothing done. Carter County tried, and then that's whenever the dog got shot. I don't know if you'd heard about that.
No. I read something about that when the 2 deputies from Carter County went.
Yes, shot one of the Nips dogs. It was Clay Nips' dog. They got in trouble after that. It's like Carter County shut down, and we didn't have absolutely no help there. But they did try in the beginning. They worked hard. There were several deputies that did work hard and trying to help us that we knew because we knew them personally.
Let's go back to the tip about the tree for a second. So Michael found out about the tip. You found out about the tip. What did you guys do?
After I let them know about it, I want to say it was around Thursday or Friday, Michael and Alex went down there to Rob Branch's house and had a talk with him, which I'm not real sure. After you get done with me on these, I would call Michael. He can tell you a lot, too, about their conversation back and forth with Rob Branch. I want to say he did take them a refrigerator, though, but I'm not sure what all was conversed back and forth or why they said they needed one, because, he's not going to tell them anything. I want to say he did tell them that he did take the refrigerator. Kobe Barrick had asked him to bring a refrigerator out, and that was the end of the week.
So when you heard that tip from our podcast last week from that anonymous person, what did you think about that?
I called Paula last night at 2:00 in the morning because I had been on vacation, so I hadn't really kept up with all the podcasts. I finally got to that one last night, and I feel like there's a lot of truth to that.
Why?
Whenever me, Paula, and Mandy went up to Con Nip's house the day that, we had been digging and digging. We'd got these tips that she was in a shallow grave. So we'd go down that, is it Simon Road? I mean, we would go to different places, and if we seen like just a little bit of hill, we'd try to dig it up. We run ourselves ragged on trying to find her that said she was in a shallow well. Whatever well we went down, we had Tim with Texas EquiSearch, Tim Miller, trying to go all down through all these wells, and it was just, we were at a loss. Well, that particular day, it was on a Sunday, and I want to say it was around a holiday at the end of August, 1st of September, right around there. There was a holiday. On that Sunday, we had dug up this one spot, and we all three thought, oh my God, it looked just like a body, like a skeleton. We all panicked, freaked out, called Michael, and we had run ourselves ragged. We're looking for her. And he dug it up, and I don't even know what we thought we saw, but it wasn't, it was nothing. And we went up we were tired of it. We were like, if they're going to kill us, they're going to have to take all three of us down. So we went down Long Hollow Road. Anytime you went down Long Hollow Road, I swear they have cameras, because one of them would meet us. That particular day, Jennifer Nip met us on the road off on Long Hollow. We were in Paula's gray truck, so she was slowing down, and it was before we even got to the Grandpa and Con's house. She pulled up beside us and said, "Can I help you?" And Paula said, "Yeah, we come to talk to your grandpa," because we had gotten a tip that they had buried Molly by that dog pen underneath some cement. We was wanting to ask permission from him if we could just go in the backyard and just search around and just see.
And where did you get that tip from?
I actually don't know if it was OSBI or if it was Paula or somebody got a tip on that. So that's where we were going, because we had been wanting to get on the land anyway, which, every time we tried to go, we got ran off. So once we got up there, she said, sure, turned around, which I was surprised. She turned around, followed her just in there. We all went to the front porch. She went inside and got, we call him Old Man John. That's the grandpa. She went inside and since he was blind, she guided him out and set him down in the chair. And we was all standing there, and we were telling him who we were. And I said, Ernie's my dad and Alex is my uncle. And then Paula was saying, well, they're my cousins, and he said, I know them. There's some they used to horse trade with me, and so I was thinking we were getting somewhere with him since he knew our parents. He did not know at the time that we knew that she was with Con, that night, because this was still early. I'm talking within 2 weeks. We had asked him if we could go search behind the house or just all around the house, just to search, nice as we could. And his exact words were, no, we have a lawyer, and he advised us not to. So that was a huge red flag for us. About that time, there was a black Chevy pulled up, Con Nip and his daddy, one arm, and he has one arm, his daddy John. They're all Johns. And they get out of the pickup. Con walks right through the house, right past us into the house. I looked at Jennifer Nip and I said, "Was that Con?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Could you go get him? I need to ask him something." Anyway, so she brings him back out. In the meantime, while she goes and gets Con, I'm looking at one-armed man Johnny's legs. He had on shorts, and his legs looked like somebody beat him with a barbed wire. They were like blood red, like somebody had whipped him across his legs, or he was running through briars. You see, it was that noticeable to where I was like, "Oh my God, what happened to your legs?" And he just kind of chuckled and said, "I guess I didn't realize I had shorts on." And that's all he said. About that time, Con came out and I said, I need to ask you something. And I just pulled him off away from everybody at the end of the porch. And I said, "Con," and at this time I didn't even know Con. I just knew of when people were telling me about him, that he was no good. He's just wild and crazy or whatever. I pulled him to the side and I said, "Con," I said, "Can you tell me where Molly's at?" He said, "Man, the way they talk." He said, "I don't know, man. The last I heard, she was with Jason Dillard." And I was like, "Jason Dillard?" He's like, "Yeah, she's probably in Wichita Falls somewhere, and just was going on." And I said, "Well, no, I don't think so." And I bribed him. I said, "Con, we'll pay you $10,000 if you'll just tell me." That's all we had was $10,000, and that was Uncle Alex was going to put that up. I said, "We'll give you $10,000 if you just tell us where she's at." And he didn't know at the time that we knew that he was the last one with her, but we were just going to let him see how far he was going to push himself to try to blame it on somebody else. You see. Well, he was just kept on about Jason Dillard. He would look at me a few times whenever I would try to ask him things, and he'd had tears rolling down his eyes. So I knew he knew something. I knew he wanted to tell. I was waiting on him to break. And every time he would try to start to talk after that, Jennifer would say, "Hey, you don't have to answer that." And then the old man, Grandpa, says, "Do y'all want a glass of tea?" We were like, "No," and he was trying to just break surface because it was getting heated. And then Paula goes, "Jason Dillard's in jail." He freaked out and said, "That motherfucker rolled over on me." And he started freaking out, pacing back and forth then. Well, I brought that up to Paul last night. I said, "You know what? Remember whenever he said that motherfucker rolled over on me?" Because I said, he is friends with Laura Chatham, which is Brienne's walk-in sister. So they all know, they all run together. There's so much that goes in together with Brianna's sister and Laura and the mama. The mama's name is Delinda Chatham. And I know all of them real well. I even bought my wedding dress from Brianna back in 2002 because she was one of my little sister's best friends. So we knew that family. Alex grew up and was best friends with their grandpa, which is Jimmy Chatham. So we've known them forever. And then the last few times, they're native. The few times all three of them came in, they were real nervous around me because I'm an optician assistant, and they were real nervous around me. You can just tell, like, whenever I try to let them put on glasses, you know what I mean? You know how you can tell when they know something and they're not. You just have that feeling. It's an uneasy feeling. Like, why are you so nervous around me? I've known y'all forever.
And now let's just clarify who these people are. These are the people that used to own the property that our anonymous tip was talking about, where that pond is.
Yeah, Brianna owned it. And I did hear shortly right after she did sell the place and move. So that kind of was a red flag too. This is the deal with this. The law enforcement get these tips. They get so many tips when they don't follow up with it. That to me, that was a huge tip.
We told you last week that we had some revealing information on a recording that was made several months ago by Paula. And now she's decided to share them with us. We did not make these recordings.
We're going to keep the identity of these people anonymous to protect them. But law enforcement is aware of these recordings, and these people have been questioned by them.
Please be advised that the information on these recordings is very disturbing.
In your opinion, not knowing exactly what he's told me, do you believe what he has told me?
I do. Between me and him, just to, it's really on his conscience.
That's all I've got is my word, but I promise you it's as 100% correct as it could be.
That baby girl was just caught in the crossfire right there.
Do you know who
it's,
hurt her?
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of them. I mean, you know, I got tied to a pole down there, or to, a fence pole and post and beat nearly to death. And, you know, it took me 4 days to get to town. I was told, you know, keep my mouth shut. And I've kept it shut as long as I can. This is a dangerous group here now.
I just could say Scott was it's just bad. It's got bad. You know, I ain't gonna lie to you. Screaming nightmares and shit. I don't even talk about it really no more, y'all. It's a terrible thing. I hate it. And
Where is she? You know where she's at.
I sure do.
Yeah.
Don't have no recruiter on. I'll tell you everything.
Okay.
All right. Pull up down there to get a boat to go to Mountain Lake. And
was you on the backside of?
Yeah, I was right there. I pulled up there, see him out there tied to the tree.
Yeah.
Okay. Kobe started tripping out, thinking I was in drug court fixing to graduate, and he started tripping out and shit, and grabbed me by the head, drug me out of the truck, tied me to a tree.
How long were you there?
A couple of days.
And
to that tree.
And she was tied to the tree the same amount of time?
And Molly knew you. Did she know? Was she aware that she knew? You know, she knew you.
Yeah, she did.
So.
And I couldn't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
And when Colt took off, when he took off, he had a hurt ankle. And here's what happened. When they took off on a chase, how they switched that car out was Joe Russell called Willie, and Willie and the girl went and got that car. That's not to say how that went down. Joe took the car and cleaned it up, all kinds of shit. They put the other car down there for a disguise deal, and I don't even like telling this story, y'all.
So then, are they alive still? Where's Molly and Colt at this moment?
Molly was on a tree. She went to crying, screaming, and y'all don't really want to hear this.
Yeah, I want to hear
it. This. I can't tell this to y'all. It's
okay.
awful. No,
They took the car. They switched it out. Joe Russell had Willie and some girl do it. Probably Termy. Is that right? Is it Termy? Okay. Well, you know, I recall, Termy Hodges.
Yeah.
Her testimony at the federal grand jury was that they tied Molly to a tree. Her words were they ran a train on her. So I'm guessing that's after Colt had been killed.
Yeah. I'll tell you everything I know. I sure don't want to because it's awful. You really probably don't. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I should have told you guys, but I went there, had nothing to do with it. I was in drug court. I was plumb out of that life, you know, and that word, it just makes me want to cry, you know.
I know.
It's a sad deal. The best thing if you can get these guys prosecuted, get it done, get your closure, and because it's gonna get way worse before it gets better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gonna get nasty. But there's a lot more to it, and as far as the meanness and the evil, that Kobe Barrack's the devil.
Yeah.
I promise you. These ain't the only two. I promise you. There's more, and he is the devil, and he sure deserves to go right on to hell. I promise you.
The main reason we are doing this podcast is to get the word out and keep Molly and Colt's story alive.
From the beginning, KXII followed the story, and even though the reporters have changed, their commitment to Molly and Colt continues. One of the reporters who has been following updates on the case is Carolyn Cluse.
We're happy to have her as our guest this week. Let's call her.
Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
We're so excited to have you.
Absolutely.
We wanted to start off by asking you a little bit about yourself, how long you've been a journalist, when did you come to KXII, and how long have you been in that area?
I've been here 2 years. I started my journalism career here, and I just signed on for 2 more. So this was my first place out of college. I went to UNT. I was in the Mayborn School of Journalism. which I loved. I'm originally from Dallas, the Dallas area, so I didn't go too far. It's nice, close to home.
That's nice. Cool. So did you hear about the Molly Miller Colt Haynes case before you went to KXII?
No, actually, I had never heard about it until I guess one of my first days when I was training in Sherman. And our anchor at the time was like, okay, you got to learn about the John Grisham, the innocent man. You got to learn about Tiger King, and you got to learn about Molly Miller. Those are the three things that I will be covering. That was my first time hearing of it.
What did you think when you heard about that story?
I mean, there's a lot of crazy things in that story. I guess I feel like the craziest thing to me, and I do enjoy true crime, so I feel like I have a fairly good sense of what investigators across the country do when things happen. And I feel like it's crazy that they didn't ask him where he was at every single moment of that night, because two people to this day still are gone. No one knows where. And I just feel like, I don't know, like comparing it to the serial, that murder, they like really broke down where that guy was and he had an answer for it. And I would love to see something similar happen with Hunnit.
Wouldn't it be great if someone could just sit him down and go through that hour by hour with him of that night?
Yeah, it would. I think that would be very enlightening.
From the second he left the police, because they were chasing him all the way down to the end of the road. What happened after that? Where did he go? What did he do? I mean, that's one of our major questions.
Yeah, and they didn't talk to him until like almost 3 to 4 weeks after, and his cousin or kin was the sheriff. And all I got was a statement from him, which we read on the podcast, which didn't really help all that much.
Yeah, it's still pretty cloudy after that.
It's still very cloudy. And then they lawyered up when they wanted to officially talk to them. So no one's ever really heard from them. But we're hearing it from other people, so which has been great. But the podcast has really it's given the area an outlet to be able to talk freely. For some people, they're anonymous. Some people don't want to be anonymous. They want to be known. So it's been really nice to see the outpouring of help for Molly's family.
Yeah, I think I've caught up with all the episodes, and I think y'all are doing a great job. So
thank you.
It's very interesting.
It's been really intense, especially trying to help Paula. So I know that you've been helping her too, which is great, because another question I have, as I'm a former journalist, one of the things that really has bothered me about these kinds of cases from the beginning is how they don't really get national attention unless they're a college student or fits a certain profile. And I think it's great that your station has always followed this case, because we did do an interview with Maureen Kane, who was an anchor there for a long time for the TV show, which was amazing. So I don't know, I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I don't think KXII will ever forget about Molly and Colt. When I first walked into my office here, the missing poster is still above my desk to this day. So it made it pretty clear to me that we want this solved, and we're gonna keep doing those stories with Paula until that happens.
So what's significant about this week is it's the anniversary. So are you guys planning anything?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've been speaking with Paula a little bit, trying to figure out, what can we do to make this year different? Because we've done a lot of stories with her about she's not here. We still don't know where she is. We still don't have answers. And I don't want to do the same story again. Obviously, I want it to be solved, but I'm trying to figure out what can I do? Are there more records requests I can make? What can I do to kind of, I guess, make a push? Because, I do feel like ever since I'd heard about this, she would be 3 years older than me. And so I feel like kind of connected to her. I just feel like I want to do this. I want to do it for her family. And I want to do a different story this year and see if anything comes out of it.
Well, you're part of her generation. So I can see how you can identify with her. And she just kind of vanished off the planet. And I just can't understand why there's not more of a law enforcement push to find out what happened. And I think that area has a stranglehold of secrecy that I think that one of the reasons we wanted to do the podcast after we did the documentary about it for Oxygen was that we felt like there really wasn't anything being done. I know behind the scenes, I'm sure there's a lot being done that we're not being told. But I think also, if it wasn't for Paula, this case would be a cold case a year after it happened. And now we're coming into the 9th year, and there's still so many questions that need to be answered. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to unearth all this stuff with Paula. And she's done an amazing job being an investigator. We deal with professional investigators all day long, FBI, all types of investigators in the programming that we do. And the thoroughness and the courageousness and the tenacity this woman has shown over this time has been unheralded. I've never seen it before. She's the only person I can kind of, every time I think about trying to compare someone, reminds me of Erin Brockovich, that story that, Julie Roberts played and that she won an Oscar for, where she was unrelenting and she had no fear, and she was going to do what was right. And that's what she's been doing through this whole thing. And so that's why we wanted to help and get the word out. And hopefully, right now, I mean, we've only been up for about 6 weeks and we're about 25,000 downloads. So,
yeah, that's great.
And so the audience is there. And I would say 80% of that audience is from southeastern Oklahoma.
Absolutely. That's why you guys are really important too.
And northern Texas.
Because I think working in conjunction with a local station like yourself really helps get the word out there that we're doing this. People are still looking at this case. It's not over.
Yeah.
So people that actually were involved should be aware of that.
Exactly.
What did you think of the search warrant denial that just happened?
I was really confused by that. And when I read the statement from Marty Grisham, it didn't sound to me like it did sound like it came from the judge, not his office, right? The denial. But I was very confused because I feel like everyone I know here in Southern Oklahoma, everyone has their ideas about what happened, who did it. But I don't think anyone's confused about whether or not a crime was committed at this point. I feel like that's pretty much people know that something happened, something that was not accidental, or even if something was accidental to begin with, something happened to cover that up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the deaths may have been accidental. I think the other one was just a way to cover it up because, and everyone says the same thing. Molly was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The guys that she was hanging out with were dealing drugs. They were around drugs. They were around that element. And I think her being there at that time was not good. And I think she was just a wild child looking for the next good time. She wanted a party and she got in the wrong car.
Yeah, so sad.
It's so sad.
Since you've heard the podcast, you realized why the warrant got turned down. What do you think of that? Because they didn't want to affect the environment. What are your feelings about why that was turned down?
Oh, I think that's, I don't know. So many things that we do or we see as journalists being done every day affect the environment and aren't for solving a case like this. It's odd, I guess.
It's odd because it's just dirt and they were going to replace the dirt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. So we all thought it was bizarre. And I don't know how much you know about the political structure in that area. Obviously, it's small town Oklahoma and there's a bunch of counties together, but something doesn't smell right. It seems like there's other forces in play here.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I've been curious about that as well, because obviously the former sheriff is no longer the sheriff. Marty Grisham even is no longer the sheriff. So I'm interested to see if there are any changes after that. Like, it seems like the sheriff is pretty much the guy who makes the law of the land in counties for the most part. So now that Joe Russell is gone, I'm not sure who people would be scared of other than, I guess, retaliation from others, I guess.
Yeah, I'm surprised that people have been able to keep this secret for so long because there's more than, obviously, Khan's not the only one involved here.
Yeah. From listening to what y'all have been told, tips and things, because I had always thought it'll come out someday when someone gets drunk or someone just gets reckless or something. But it sounds like people have been talking. They have gotten drunk or reckless or whatever, but it's still not coming to light, which is odd.
Yeah, it's odd to us too. I mean, we're listening to these people give us information and we haven't even released all of it. It's shocking information and very graphic. And for the details. And the details are kind of really lining up with a lot of the stuff that happened in the first 2 weeks of the investigation. So for us, we always go back to the beginning because we feel like that's really where all your clues are. And no one seems to be taking it seriously. And that's what's a little unnerving for us because we don't understand. We've asked them to listen to this stuff again. No one's responded.
Yeah.
Which is strange because we work with different agencies all over the country.
We've worked with all the agencies
and
before.
We've never had someone just blatantly ignore us like that.
Yeah, and I even called some of my contacts in all these different alphabet agencies, FBI, US Marshals, and everything, and I'll run stuff by them. They're retired now, and they're like confused. Like, why would we follow up on that? I mean, granted, there's an enormous amount of caseload and those small offices, and I give them that. But even they said, even if they were overwhelmed, if they have a tip that's a hot tip, why wouldn't they vet it out? Why wouldn't they go search that pond? Why wouldn't they go search? Why wouldn't they get the push for the warrant to go search the NIPS property, which still hasn't been searched to this day, and the burn pit, which is not even on the NIPS property, has been looked at, but it hasn't been forensically looked at. I mean, there was apparently OSBI took some soil samples. No one knows what happened to them. No one knows what happened to them. It was fished out with a Mountain Dew can, and like no forensic evidence has ever been really recovered. And that's why Paula has been so important in this case, because she's the only one following up on all this stuff.
Yeah.
She's the one really pounding the pavement. And the woman's a housewife.
So when you say that you haven't heard back about these, like you said, you were telling them to go over stuff and stuff like that. Have you not heard back at all? Like
Paula
not
hasn't
even
heard back. Paula's taken the lead on it.
No, she has not.
She reached out to the FBI, was probably about a month ago, right when we first started doing this, and asked them. They had interviewed this one person, and Paula had a recording of an alternative interview that she did, and she said that she was going to release the tapes onto the podcast, and that if you have any issues with it, call us back. And they have not called us back. And that's
interesting.
At least a month. And that's when I called my friends who are former homicide detectives and former U.S. Marshals and investigators. And I was like, what should I do? What should we do? We're not getting here back. And they're shocked.
What do you think it's going to take in order to find answers in this case? Do you have any?
I don't know. And I wonder all the time about that. I mean, not constantly, but pretty regularly. I don't know. Because if you can't get on to the property to do another search, I have no idea.
Jackie Bates, the investigative, he had the best scenario there. He said Con was the last person to see them both. He said that he should be at least negligent homicide. I think that's what the terms of the case is. You have at least that, because they've been declared dead, and he was the last person to see them. And we know for a fact that he spoke to them after the fact, because Joe Russell's statement that he took from Con said so. So,
well, in Oklahoma, we have degrees of murder too. So first degree, I guess, is, you intend to kill someone. And then I believe second degree is, and I have not looked this up in a while, so it might not be quite right, but I believe it's if you're committing another felony and someone dies during that, then you get second degree, or manslaughter if it's a misdemeanor and someone dies while you're doing that.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. It was an accident.
Yeah, but even if I think, and I've done I've covered some cases on it. I think that even if you didn't mean to, and it was a felony that you were committing, then you can still get a murder charge from it in Oklahoma.
Well, it just seems like no one's really doing anything about it at this point.
Yeah. And honestly, not here, there are some law enforcement agencies here that I work really well with. And, I have great working relationships with them, but there are others who just never call me back. And it is the most frustrating thing. And there are things we could do about it if it gets bad enough, but that sounds very on track with my day-to-day reporting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, we're the same. People always call us back. We deal with law enforcement all the time. But in this case particular, we've had a lot of roadblocks.
Yeah.
I mean, Paula calls them all the time. And then, and she gets, and most of the time she's calling them to give them information. And then she doesn't get any follow-up as far as whether or not it was followed up. And, and they can hide behind the cloak of this is an open investigation, which is all well and good. I mean, last thing we want to do is compromise an active investigation, but there's at least tell us there's an active investigation. At least tell us that you're looking into things. Let the people know.
Yeah. Even in the worst possible crimes, there are so many crimes that we cover that we think, this feels bad to tell people about what happened to this poor person. But I mean, inevitably, I'm always shocked by, we'll get someone will write us an email or whatever and tell them, oh, I didn't realize this happened to someone else. And now I can go to law enforcement and get that prosecuted. I'm a firm believer in letting people know the absolute truth, because I think that's when the best outcomes happen. So I mean, it's a crazy case.
It is a crazy case. It doesn't.
Honestly, I'm surprised that it was never a national media, because it seems like.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to what I was saying before, as Molly was not picture perfect college student. She was living on the edge a little bit.
she was doing a rebel thing. She was rebelling.
being
I mean, everything
rebellious.
we talk about, she just got into an argument with her mom. Well, I think
Yeah.
that a couple days beforehand.
And they thought she was a runaway, and they just chalked it up to that. And when they chalk it up to a runaway, they don't really, I covered the West Mesa serial killings. It's the same thing. It's like all those girls were considered runaways, but it doesn't matter. This should get national attention as well. I know you can't cover every single case nationally, but this case, there's something else going on here.
Yeah, it smells fishy for sure.
Yeah.
The runaway thing bothers me too. And I think that I wasn't there when KXI first covered it, but I do know that anytime there's a runaway now, my boss is like, yeah, we got to get that on air no matter what. So I'm not sure if that factored into it, but
we do
great. Care.
I think it's great. Your station's
That's
been
awesome.
amazing with this case. So that's awesome. Today, we're going to start off with Lisa Ribacoff, who is a professional polygraph examiner and deception analysis expert.
We had Lisa analyze the unedited recording that Paula captured from the potential eyewitness that detailed what he saw happen to Molly and Colt on July 8th, 2013.
If you haven't heard that person's testimony, we urge you to listen to episode 11, Eyewitness, prior to hearing what Lisa has to say about the veracity of his statements.
All right, so let's dive into the tape that we gave you, or the recording that we gave you that Paula did over like a year ago. Tell us what your thoughts are, because you heard the raw, unedited version, so you heard everything, and that's one of like 3 that we have. So tell us your thoughts and what you think this person is saying, and whether or not you think they're telling the truth.
Well, before I even address that, I want to indirectly, via you guys in the podcast, to give Paula the biggest hug from this side of the table and applaud her for all of her efforts, because she has taken on the role of being the sole investigator in this right now. And the fact that she has been able to set her emotions and feelings aside and pursue this to the degree that she has is absolutely incredible. Because I've seen situations in the past where family members did give up hope, and they did just sit on their hands and they just waited, and they just figured, okay, well, you know what? The victims have been declared deceased and we're just going to move on with our lives. But she is just going for it, gung-ho, guns blazing into the ring of fire, and I commend her.
Yeah, she's
Agreed.
amazing. She's never going to give up.
And you know what? I applaud her, and I wish I could, if there was something I could do to help her, I absolutely would, because this is listening to the raw footage. I remember, I called Rob right after, and I was just, the first words were just profanity, and I'm not going to choose my 4 little words right now, but I just had no words at that point other than profanity, because I was just heartbroken to hear the narrative of what he was saying. And the entire time I kept going ahead and taking notes as to what he was saying, and I was like, I agree, I believe you, I hear what you're saying. And under zero realm could I go ahead and say right now that there's nothing that he said that was deceptive at all, meaning the fact of I can put any amount of money on the fact that he's telling the truth pertaining to the narrative that he's giving. If I had a child, I would swear on my firstborn child, but I don't have one, so therefore I'm just gonna have to float an accidental amount of money on it to say that he's not being deceptive.
And what were the things that clued you in that he wasn't being deceptive? Give us some of the telltale signs that you look at as a professional person in your field. What were the clues?
So he hit a couple of tells. The first tell was the fact that it flowed very smoothly. And when I teach continuing education seminars to either attorneys or judges or other examiners around the country, I always tell them, if it doesn't make sense, it probably is not true. And he has been able to provide so many intricate details, and he's been consistent along the way with the narratives that he's been telling either to Paula or law enforcement agencies, and there's no deviation from it. And it's very difficult for his story that he's telling Paula on the recording to go ahead and be scripted, especially, like I said, because of the consistency of the details of what he has been saying. Also, there's the hesitancy with his speech. There is none. Everything is free flowing. And the only time he's stopping in his story is because he's actively aware of Paula's emotions. And when he chooses not to make eye contact and he's putting his head down, he's taking a break in his own head and probably thinking like, you know what, do I really want to go ahead and do this? Like, it's a lot to go ahead and tell her, but she continues to be reassuring and saying, listen, I've heard it all before. There's nothing that you're going to tell me that's a surprise. I just need you to validate what I already know. And he, again, is forthcoming. He's bringing in all of these other individuals. He's explaining the who, what, where, when, and why. And for all of these different reasons, I do have to deem him as credible to the narrative that he's telling.
We feel the same way. I mean, we're glad to hear that. It's nice to be reassured by someone like yourself, but we felt that from the beginning as well. And we're just confused as to why law enforcement hasn't taken him seriously.
Well, I think the reason why law enforcement's not taking him seriously is obviously because of everything that's going on behind the scenes in the town. They don't want to go ahead and pursue this because it can open up Pandora's box, given the fact that they would have had this information a long time ago and they would be sitting on it, which can then turn into legal issues later on. Maybe they would just want to go ahead and avoid any possible litigation, or it can deal with reputation issues pertaining to specific officers that are involved, especially given everything going on with the sheriff credibility-wise. It can also, which I've seen in the media before, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it, where you have one officer that goes ahead and provides a statement or fabricates evidence pertaining to a specific case, and next thing you know, someone finds out about it, and then you have a bunch of other cases now that get overturned, or even dispositions. Inmates come out of prison because of the testimony of one individual.
Yeah.
So it could be a domino effect type of situation, but the fact of the matter is that agency, pardon my French, doesn't know their head from their ass right now.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
In the coming weeks, we have some exciting things happening. We have received dozens of requests from our audience to speak to the corruption in the county. We have heard dozens of stories of how people have suffered because of these abuses of power by elected officials.
We're going to be discussing some of these stories with locals and experts to help initiate some changes in the community. We're also going to create an open forum on the podcast.
We're going to have an episode that is completely interactive. We want to hear from you. What are your questions or thoughts on the case? What would you like to discuss with us? And do you have any information to share?
Please submit your questions or comments with your phone number on the website if you would like to be on the podcast, or you would like us to discuss your question or comment.
You can submit this information confidentially directly on the podcast at the bottom of the first page where it says contact.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Partners in True Crime is launching an exciting new podcast, The Killing Hour with Doc Bond. Famous criminologist and author Dr. Scott Bond will be joining Rob and I on a deep dive into true crime and serial killers. It'll be an exploration into the mind of one of the world's most notorious serial killers, Dennis Rader, aka BTK.
We will be joined by special guests featuring BTK's daughter, BTK's prison guard, New York Times best-selling author and Emmy-winning filmmaker Mark Olshaker, the creator of Mindhunters, and more.
Join us every Wednesday as we investigate the sadistic, dark world of serial killers to understand what makes them tick. Learn the signs of these psychopaths who walk among us, because how well do you really know anyone?
If you have any information regarding the case, please contact the BIA at www.bia.gov/BIA/missing-murder-unit.
You can also call their hotline with tips at 1-833-560-2065 and email them directly at ojs_mmu@bia.gov.
And if you want to text them with a tip, text keyword BIA-MMU and send your tip to 847-411.
Check the Partners in True Crime website for this and any additional information.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.